I needed to kind of make sure that that's what I really wanted to do. And again, to make myself a good candidate for a college or law school. So that's why I ended up joining the speech and debate and drama team. And I have to tell you, I was deathly shy, and I'm still a shy person, believe it or not. A very, very shy person. And I ended up being on stage and narrating the school play the entire time. And that was a really hard thing for me to do, but it was a push that I needed to make and prove to myself that this is what I wanted to be doing.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring you on tonight, Alycia. It's all about giving yourself permission to make that shift, to make that pivot, right? And that's why we're on tonight, everyone. This is Wednesday Night Legal Marketing Live. My special guest this evening is attorney Alycia Kinchloe. I'm Mitch Jackson. We're talking about pivoting and shifting and career choices. Maybe you were thinking about doing something different before COVID-19. Maybe now you need to do something different. Well, I'll tell you what, you guys, I've got the right guest on this evening. We were just chatting about her early years. What, as a matter of fact, Alycia, let me have you tell the story. Talk to us a little bit more about those early years in high school and college where you found yourself on stage doing something that made you feel uncomfortable, but which brought you full circle to where we are today. And before you jump into your story, I want everyone to please share your pivot, share your shift. Let us know where you are. Let us know what questions you have for Alycia. Let us know what challenges you have right now in moving forward with opening up a different department in your law firm, with making a shift in your career, with maybe going a different direction with your products, your businesses, or your services. Alycia, you're standing on stage. You're a little bit apprehensive about what's going on, and you're looking out at the audience. What happened next?
So one of the things about being on stage in front of a big audience, and I went to a high school in Oklahoma that was fairly big, is that when those lights are on, you can't really see anyone, right? It's really just darkness out there. But again, I realized how comfortable I felt on that stage. And again, I was sharing with you that, again, I was a very shy person. I'm an Army brat. We moved, I changed schools almost every 2 years. And at some point I kind of receded into myself a little bit. I got a little bit nervous about being around new people. And again, I knew that I wanted to be a lawyer. So this was an opportunity for me to say, look, I need to work on those skills that allow me to speak in front of people, to not be nervous. So I pushed myself into something that was a little bit uncomfortable. But once I got on stage, I felt at home. And that still is the place where I really feel like I'm in my glory, where I'm very, very comfortable, is on stage.
And I've watched you on stage, and I've told you, you're a gifted speaker, you're a gifted presenter. And, it took, you had to push yourself though, to get up on stage that first time. Before we went live, we were talking a little bit about Alycia's high school memories. I was sharing a playlist with her. I just got back from a run. And it's interesting, Alycia, coming full circle to today, looking at our guests joining us from all over the world on all the different platforms. And I see your questions. We will be asking Alycia to answer your questions. But I watched you last year on stage talking to a room full of lawyers, a large audience of lawyers, about it's okay to question where you are in your career. It's okay to want to pivot and maybe do something slightly different or drastically different with your career, with the decisions that you're making. After graduating from high school and going to law school, and I think you got your MBA, if I'm not mistaken. Talk to us a little bit about your story back then and how it brought you to this mindset where it's okay to pivot and it's okay to make these changes.
Sure. So I would say, after moving around again a lot, as much as we did, I like the idea of having some stability. So when I was in my last year of high school, I was 16. I started working at a law firm the summer before, and it was a Social Security disability firm. And I was actually the owner's first employee. He had just gone solo, leaving his own father's practice. I worked there for my last year of high school, all throughout college. I went to law school at night and I worked full time during the day. And then when I left law school, I started working there as a lawyer. And at some point I became the managing associate of the firm. And I really felt like I didn't have enough skills to be doing the job that I've been doing. So, and I was also still a little bit restless, right? I still wanted to be challenged. So I went to business school and got an executive MBA. And I felt like that gave me a lot of the skills the gap that I had from law school in terms of running an actual practice. But I really felt like I just needed a challenge. But this entire time, I was still practicing Social Security disability law. So you can imagine being 16 and then being in the same place all those years. And it goes by fast. It seems like a lot, but it goes by really, really fast. And after a while, I look up and it's 16 years later, and I had been in one place for half of my life.
Wow.
And this is from an Army brat who moved around all the time. So, I had to look inside myself and say, why did I get so comfortable with staying in one place? What was it that about maybe moving around a lot, losing friends? And this is before social media where you could just hop on Facebook and connect with them. You're losing friends, you're starting over. I like the idea of stability, but I also like the challenge, and I couldn't get that staying where I was. So that's what caused me to eventually decide to kind of leave the practice and start out on my own.
And how long ago was it when you started your own practice?
It'll be 6 years on Sunday.
6 years on Sunday, and that's in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Alycia is an attorney, an entrepreneur, a business owner, a speaker, a businesswoman, and an amazing human being. And what pivoting to your own practice, when you opened up your own doors, Alycia, were you married back then? Kids? What was? I know you got a lot going on now. How about back then?
Yes, absolutely. And again, sometimes that's a deterrent, right? The more responsibilities we have, the less likely we are to make or take risk. And that was the case. I was married. I'm still married. We had the boys. I had actually just had my youngest son. And I would tell you that was part of the reason why I felt a little bit more comfortable about making that change. I spent 2 months in the hospital with my youngest son because I had complications. So it was a lot of time to kind of sit still and think. And I think for most people who are probably thinking about leaving one job or starting something new, we've thought about it for a while and we just decided not to do. We just haven't been doing it. And for me, I just kind of stayed busy and just didn't really kind of take that step. But sitting still for 2 months, not being able to leave the room at all for 2 months gave me time to think about, what am I really doing? This is the only life that I get. This is the only life that all of us, that this is all we have. And we have to take those opportunities. We have to take those risks if we feel like they're the right thing to do. So that's kind of what was going through my mind at that time.
And whether it was back then or even today, it might be the same thought process. How did you figure out that this is what you wanted to do? You wanted to open up a law firm and practice a particular area of law. How do we know today what's that right choice?
Yeah, I think you have to think about what it is that you enjoy doing. When I was sitting there and I was thinking about what it was that I liked about the work that I do, because I still loved, and I still do practice some Social Security disability law. I loved being able to help people when they needed my help. I knew that there were a lot of people who were injured, were sick, and they needed somebody to fight for them. So I was an advocate. I love that part about my job. I love managing people. I spent a number of years, again, building this firm, helping to build this firm from one person, myself, and to 140 employees. So I knew I could do it. It was, could I do it for myself? And for me, it was really thinking about, well, what is it about all of these things that I like? And how can I move that into doing that someplace else or for myself? So for people who are thinking about making a pivot, think about what it is that gives you energy, that gives you life, that makes you happy. And sometimes it's maybe not in the exact way that we're thinking about it, but I was able to take those advocacy skills from being a Social Security disability attorney and be an advocate for the dads that I represent, for the moms that I represent, help them to feel more empowered. And that is what I think helps me to continue to do what I do. And that's why I say I'm a happy family law attorney. And I don't run across a lot of those. A lot of people think about this practice as being very stressful. I enjoy the work that I do. I love the work that I do. But part of that is because I really think about what it is that makes me happy every day.
So how can we tap into what do we enjoy doing? How can we build a business around that? How can we monetize that? If we're a lawyer, but maybe we enjoy doing something else that's not even related to law, Is it okay to make that pivot out away from the practice of law? Is it okay to take risk when you're married and you have kids? What are some of the steps that you took to evaluate which direction to go and how hard to go that direction? And then if you made a mistake or something didn't work out the way you wanted it to, how did you handle that?
So I think the first thing is that if you do have a partner, like of course I have a husband, is to kind of have that conversation with them and make sure as much as possible they're on board. I always say he supports all my crazy ideas, which is amazing. It gives me the freedom to kind of really kind of go out there and figure out what it is I want to do. But I think we need to be responsible. And I think the more people that we're responsible to, the more that we have to actually think about what that risk looks like and how we can mitigate some of the risks associated with it. So again, we had now 3 young children who were school age. What do we do about that? We have a house, I have student loans, at the time. What are those things look like? How are we going to find the money for this? Are we going to borrow? Are we going to use savings? I think you have to sit down and say, okay, what can I plan for? How can we deal with this? How does this change the trajectory, whatever our plans are as husband and wife or for our family? And then you have to then step out on faith a little bit. But when it comes to, I want to kind of go back to something you mentioned about monetizing what it is that we like to do. One of the things I like to remind people is that the thing that makes you happy doesn't always have to be your 9 to 5, your job, your business. Sometimes it can be your hobby. Sometimes you can monetize it on the side. But I think sometimes we think that because we like to do a certain thing, it's supposed to be the thing that helps us meet our monthly nut. That's not necessarily the case. So you need to be in a place where I think you still need to be in a place where you enjoy the work that you do because you're spending so much of your time there, but understand that you can get the joy you want out of other things by that not being where you go to work every single day too.
I just love that. I mean, it sounds to me like you're someone that's surrounded herself with people who love you, who support the decisions that you're making. You're someone that's not afraid to follow your dreams and follow your passions. And it sounds like it started all the way back in high school when you took that stage for the first time in front of that crowd of people. What a lot of us want to do this, Alycia. A lot of us want to go a different direction. A lot of attorneys I know are ready to make a change, especially right now in COVID-19. Some of them need to make a change right now, right? We were talking about this earlier today. How can they figure out what path they should take and deal with that challenge or that issue that we all have of imposter syndrome? Are we good enough to do what we think we want to do, to take that next step, to give notice, to start our own practice, to start that new business? How do we deal with imposter syndrome? How do we move forward and get past that limiting mindset that a lot of people have?
Mitch, I wish I knew about imposter syndrome when I was in college or law school even. I think I discovered it when I was in business school and was just like, oh my God, like this is what I've been feeling, but I didn't know there was a word for it. I didn't know there was studies behind it. And I definitely didn't know that so many other people felt the way that I felt about it. And I think it's a very important thing for people to kind of understand and deal with. The first thing is, and I'll always give like this caveat, the imposter syndrome may not always be in your head, right? There are times where people are really making you feel like you're not worthy, you shouldn't be there, you shouldn't belong. And sometimes that could be sexist or racist, whatever the case may be. So I'm not talking about those situations where, no, there really is something going on. I'm talking about where we are kind of looking at ourselves as not being good enough. And I think women tend to do that a little bit more. I know people of color tend to experience that a little bit more, feeling like we don't belong in the room or at the table. And I think when it comes to a different type of situation of imposter syndrome, where we're changing an area, we're becoming new at something, it is even more difficult, or it can be just as difficult. So I always give the example of kind of, again, doing the work that I did in Social Security practice, right? I worked there for 16 years. A lot of the people who are judges were lawyers, at the time, or clerks. I was on a first name basis with a lot of people over the years. Judges would ask me, when are you starting your own practice? It felt like Cheers, right? I go in, everybody knows my name, the experts, the judges, the clerks, the lawyers.
That's awesome, though.
And to give that up and start all over is scary. And I think that, being several years into practicing law and then going into new practice area, you can't really rely on people understanding that you're new at it because they're looking at you as a seasoned attorney. Why don't you know this case? Why don't you know this rule? Why don't you know this local rule? Why don't you know that Judge so-and-so likes his stuff like this? You're expected to know these things because you are a little bit older. And it can be daunting, really. And I think that's where, and I know we're going to talk a little bit more about some steps to take to kind of master some of these things, but you have to kind of understand that that kind of comes with it, right? It comes with starting something new, is that it's new. You're an experienced novice. But because you have some experience, you can kind of cut the curve a little bit because you know some of the mistakes not to make. And the rest of it is just learning how the game is played.
So what questions can we ask ourselves? What things can we work on to get past or over that hurdle where I want to go down path A, but I'm not sure I'm good enough or smart enough or educated enough or well-versed in that topic enough to actually take that first step, right? I'm not good enough to do that. But we all know, the older we get and the more experience we get, that all of us experience this, right? It's not a matter of not being good enough. It's giving yourself permission to take that first step. What are some things we can ask ourselves? What are some techniques we can use to start down that path and get past the imposter syndrome?
So there are some great steps. I think the first thing to do is to take a look at yourself and look within yourself and think about how you talk to yourself. Think about the things you say to yourself. Our voice is always with us. And if it's a negative voice, we're hearing negative thoughts all the time. So take a step back and think about that. Think about how you respond to failure, to making a mistake, to criticism from other people. Think about what happens. What do you feel physically? What do you feel mentally? What do you say to yourself? Do you say, damn, that was so stupid? Like, why did you make that mistake? I remember being, years ago when I was in the other firm, things would sit with me for so long if I made a mistake. And it could be a small mistake that no one may have even caught, but it would sit with me for so long. Being on my own and having to continue to kind of go, whether or not I'm sad or scared, made me those things don't sit with you as long. But I would absolutely tell you that you need to kind of think about how you talk to yourself. And it's a process. If you need to put notes on your mirror every morning that is an affirmation or tells you or reminds you, I would literally cut myself off mid-thought and say, okay, all right, Leash, no, you can't do that. We're not going to have that thought, that conversation in your head. You're better than this. Keep going. And it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice, but you can do that. And then the next steps are outward steps that you can start to take to kind of deal with, how do I get better? How do I master?
People, when I was younger, people always joked with me about listening to Tony Robbins tapes. This is 20 some years ago, back when we had tapes, on my way to the motocross track. They're all listening to rock and roll and getting amped up to do laps around the track. And I'm listening to Tony Robbins, right? The difference between, it's not a failure, it's an unexpected result. And keep moving forward, keep tweaking the situation. But it's changed my life. I mean, what you just shared with our audience is so powerful. And I'd love the audience, you guys, share an example, share a tip, share something that you've used to get past that imposter syndrome. Use the comments, you guys. Reach out to us and share your experiences. If you have questions, reach out and we'll bring those questions into Alycia. I've got about 10 questions right here, Alycia, that we're going to get to before the hour's up, but I want everyone to know that we will get to your questions. How about the people we surround ourselves with? In other words, Alycia, you're training yourself to keep moving forward, to do this pivot, to get past the imposter syndrome. And you've got things handled, but you've got everybody around you. And maybe not you, but people you've seen or people you've represented who are just beating them down, right? They're just telling them they're never going to be successful. They're telling them, quit dreaming and go to work and earn a paycheck, right? I see that a lot with people in my life. How do we deal with the negative people around us so that we can keep everybody happy? And if they're family members, we want to keep them in our lives, but we also want to move forward and achieve our dreams, right? There's a balance there. It's tough.
There absolutely is a balance. And I think what you have to do is amplify the voices that are actually motivating you to move forward more. So if you do have that family member who is more negative, again, like you said, don't cut them off. Still, you maintain a relationship with them. But those people who drive you, who are like-minded, who are going to tell you that you can do it no matter what. You need a lot more of that. And if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you need a whole lot of it. So I think that you really have to find your community, find your village, and find your person. So my community has really kind of been like you guys, Mitch, really you. I think once I found Legal Minds, I noticed a big shift because starting my practice, especially as a solopreneur, you are by yourself. You're a solo. And so I can talk to my husband, but it's a different thing when you're talking to people who are doing the same type of work as you. And then I don't always want to bring all of my stuff and then dump it on him, right? I think that finding the people who understood what I was going through, and not in a negative way, but can give me ideas, give me tips. That finding your mastermind was definitely a big change. Some of the other groups, the Maximum Lawyer group has been really good. Those things have really kind of helped me. And then, like I said, finding my village. I feel like you guys are part of my village. If I'm going through something, I can reach out to you. I can reach out to Mo. I can reach out to Don. I can reach whoever. All those people, Johnny. I talk to Johnny almost every day.
Do you really?
Yeah.
He's great. He's great.
But like I can talk to all these people and kind of keep moving. And then my person lately has been Jillian. So hey, Jillian, if you're watching. But Jillian and I have our own little thing that we meet up every 2 weeks and we talk about our practice for a couple of hours. Awesome. We can go in with each other and actually work on projects together. When I tell you that being able to kind of talk about what's really going on and being transparent without fear of seeming like I'm weak or that I don't have it all together, that is invaluable. So you need to find your people and then understand your people can change over time.
That is so powerful. Find your people. Find your people. Sometimes they're not underneath the roof where you live, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're not in the office you're working at or in. That is huge. And some of our people are here and they're sharing some of their tips. Like I asked them to, Dan, who's out of Canada, big believer of daily affirmations, get that mindset straight. Don McClure, very, always there, right? Very supportive family. And thank you, Don. Really appreciate that. Vision boards, yes. Affirmations, meditate. I've never been one to meditate. I just don't have the time to meditate. Maybe I need to. Do you meditate, Alycia?
I do. Yeah. And then if I'm particularly stressed, I will do it more. But okay. That has been helpful too. It's very short, but I do.
So you have to find what works for you, right? Mm-hmm. What maybe works for you might not work for someone else. But I'm with you. Some of the communities that I'm involved with always give me new ideas. Always give me a little kick in the butt. Always give me a little bit more inspiration to do something. And oftentimes, Alycia, they're not my legal community. Yeah. They're outside communities. Talk a little bit about, and I know you touched upon this, but talk about, let's say you're a lawyer and you're doing family law, like what you're doing, father's rights and family law, litigation. Where else do you get your inspiration other than what you've already shared with us? Are there any, for example, I happen to know that you're an entrepreneur, you're a businesswoman, you've got other things going on. Do you find inspiration outside of the law in those other businesses, talking with the customers, getting new ideas that you can bring back into your practice?
Absolutely. And that was one of the reasons I started the Growth Goal, which is my one of my podcasts, because being able to talk to other type of business owners about what they're seeing absolutely gives me ideas, right? I like the idea that a person who owns or runs a bakery might have some ideas about the way that I can create a enjoyable customer experience for my clients. And then sometimes it's just kind of just talking through different things. But I definitely feel like having letting yourself be a lot more creative is really, really good. So the podcast give me that. The salon allows me to be a lot more creative than the law firm gives me an opportunity to be. And then, reading a lot of books. I just read a lot of different books. But those
and you mentioned the podcast. Tell us a little bit about your podcast. What's it about and where can people find it?
So the Growth Goal podcast is a business podcast that's geared towards solo and small business owners who are looking to grow their businesses. I started it because I felt like when I was trying to grow initially, there wasn't a lot of resources for how actual small and solo businesses can start to grow. There's a lot of things for if you want to have a startup and run it to $1 billion and sell it off. But when it comes to actually having a small business, real stuff about it, I wasn't finding a lot of really transparent types of resources. And I read a book by Paul Downs called The Boss Life, where he talked about losing his business, and he just kind of diaried it for 12 months. And that's what the whole book is. And then at the end of the book, he says, if you want to talk to me some more, email me. I emailed him and he was like, hey, let's talk. And he actually is not too far from Philly. So I went to his factory where he makes furniture and I did an interview. And I'm like, oh my God, I love this. And that's how the podcast starts. So we talk to business owners about how they're growing their businesses. One of the most recent episodes is with a local chef here, Chef Ted Torres, who had a catering company, which, as you know, and can imagine, he can't really do. So he switched to meal kits. So he's talked about like how he's kind of improvising and innovating to make sure that he stays a going concern. So the growth goal, again, that's kind of how I said about finding a thing that you enjoy to do. It doesn't have to be what gives you money or helps you pay all your bills, but it's enjoyable to me. I love doing it.
I want to dive a little bit deeper into how you've shifted or pivoted over the last 2 or 3 months because of COVID-19. And I also just want to point out, we were just talking before we went live, I just finished a run. And in addition to the music track I shared with you, I also just finished listening to Jason Fried's book, and Jason's going to be on the show. But they were talking about the difference between a startup and staying up. Anybody can start a new business. It's a matter of staying alive and keeping that business moving forward. And part of that, using the chef analogy, is he pivoted and he started to do other things because we haven't been able to open for business. What are some things that you've done, whether it's over the last couple of months or maybe over the last couple of years, to shift or pivot in your business to keep moving forward, to follow your passions, to follow your dreams, and to build a successful business?
I think part of it is kind of looking at the client experience. I try to put that to the forefront and looking at, well, if I'm having trouble with the way that my clients are maybe interacting with me or the way they're receiving the services, again, being a family law attorney, you're not seeing people at the happiest moments in their lives, but it's how can you make that experience somewhat enjoyable for them? And for me, it's been using ideas that I get from, the mastermind, from Legal Minds, and other things to kind of make sure that I'm giving that a great experience to people and helping them and making them feel empowered. It's the same thing with the salon. How are we giving you an enjoyable experience? How are we allowing you to come into our space and making you feel welcome, making you feel happy to be there? We want people to want to come and see us, even if they're not getting their hair done. Now, that was pre-COVID, right. But we want our clients and our customers to feel like they know us, and we know their families, because that's what we're really trying to build here, is build our communities. But I think that what we've done is really kind of look at the way that we're offering services, making them as contactless as possible, making them as efficient as possible. And I have to say, I know with the law firm, when everything happened, we didn't have an issue with going to the cloud or going remote at all, because all of our services work that way. Our clients could e-sign things. Everything was scanned in. Our phones could just be transferred. It was no problem. When I was talking to some of the people in my committees, they didn't even know where to begin. They're still going into the office because they couldn't stop. And I think having that mindset ahead of time kind of helped us a little bit, make that transition a little bit smoother. For the salon, I'm constantly thinking about, one, what does the future look like for us? If we're going to have to shut down again, how can I take care of my clients? How can I help them take care of their hair? And I think thinking about how to solve their problems before they become real problems is the best way to kind of deal with that.
Oh, I love that. Just solving the problems before they become real problems. I love that so much. It's so important. We're going to be talking about how we can master our job, our occupation that we're going to be pivoting to. But before we do, Alycia, if you don't mind, I would like to jump to a couple of questions that relate to what we've already talked about. And for those of you just joining us, whether it's live or recorded, I'm chatting with my good friend, Alycia Kinchloe. She's a lawyer out of Philadelphia, entrepreneur, speaker, businesswoman, and all around awesome human being. I know when we met online, but when we first met at one of the first conferences we went to, we actually got to spend some time together and Uber back and forth to where you and I were both speaking. And then I think the following year, if I'm not mistaken, you got to meet Lisa. Yes. And we got to see each other again. And that's a great way to build personal relationships and professional relationships, right? It's taking your online relationships offline and vice versa, being safe when you do it, right? You want to be careful when you're doing all this stuff. But I think when you find the right community, when you find your people and you can speak frankly and ask questions and add value, I think that's where the magic really happens. One of the questions, I think it's on Periscope, if I'm not mistaken, with respect to your law practice, I think you kind of answered this with respect to you're already in the cloud, but what are you doing moving forward with respect to the management of your practice? In case something else happens, are there any additional steps you're taking right now to help bulletproof your practice?
So I think one of the things that I'm using, what I did do too, during the downtime and the courts were closed, was kind of taking a step back and looking at all my processes. Because, as we're a small business, sometimes we kind of duct tape things together and because we're so busy, we don't have time to figure out what's the most efficient way to do that. I had an opportunity to kind of take a step back and say, look, no, our lines need to work this way. We need to make sure that things are getting to people this way. So that's been one of the things I've done is say, okay, well, where is it not running smoothly? Where are my bottlenecks? How can I fix those things to make sure that our systems are ready for whatever happens and things can run a lot smoother? And part of my mindset has always been, how can I make my businesses run without me? I want to keep going to court. I love what I do, but I also want to look at the fact that somebody should be able to step in and I shouldn't have to be there. And I think if you carry that mindset with you, you're going to kind of set up your practices or your businesses to run a lot more efficiently if you're not the keeper of all the information, of all the systems, of everything that needs to happen with your business. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it. But then I'm also trying to prepare my clients, especially my clients, for what happens if everything shuts down again. How do I get them results? And so I've been looking at, more mediation, looking at parenting coordination, giving them other resources to get the answers and resolutions that they need, because it's not okay that our courts have been shut down for 3 months, right, and our courts technically are still not open to the public. So it may not be until September. My clients are going through custody and divorce situations and they still need answers. So it's how can I deal with those things and prepare for that too?
One of the things we've done is we've really emphasized Zoom and other live video services for mediation, arbitration, to try to get those results for the clients, trying to think, outside the box, to use a term that everybody's heard a million times, but it's true right now, is it's figuring out other ways to get the job done for the clients. Dan asked, what was your inspiration for starting the salon? I mean, it sounds like you're busy, you've got your hands full. I think it probably has something to do with maybe one of your passions, one of your interests.
So, okay. Again, I like businesses, right? My mom is an entrepreneur. Hey, Mom, I know you're probably watching. And Dad, because I didn't mention him the other day.
Everybody.
But my dad was in the military, of course, and was always, being transferred somewhere else, sometimes spending time overseas in South Korea. My mom would run a daycare. Sometimes it was out of the home, a licensed daycare out of the home. Sometimes it was an actual center. So for most of my life, I got to see my mom as an entrepreneur running the business. And so for me, I thought about what that might look like. And I had an opportunity to see how much freedom that gave us. So I have a master plan of the types of businesses that I would like to own. A salon is one of them, has always been one of them. And the salon was an opportunity that kind of came out of nowhere a lot sooner than I thought it would. But there is a plan. But
Alycia, is the salon because of hair, because you like being around people, because of cosmetics? I mean, why a salon?
I think the beauty industry is one that has always been attractive to me, whether it's hair, whether it's makeup, and definitely looking at what Black women spend in terms of hair, makeup, those things is definitely an opportunity for us to be more involved in it. But yes, absolutely. I think it's partly being attracted to the beauty industry itself.
Did you have these thoughts back in high school and college?
Yes.
Before law school?
There's a plan. It's been a master plan.
It's a master plan. Look at this. I love this. So talking about master plans, I don't know how much experience you had in the hair salon industry, the beauty industry back in high school or college, but you now own a hair salon, right? And what's the name of your shop? What's the name of the
It's
salon?
called Blazer Hair and Beauty Bar. It's in the Germantown area of Philadelphia.
There you go. Is it open? Are you open yet or not
We
yet?
are. We opened yesterday. We are
Oh,
appointment only, but we opened yesterday.
all right. So everybody go down. Everybody in Philadelphia, get your hair done at Alicia's place. But my question kind of segues into the third topic, the third area of tonight's conversation, and that is, how do we, okay, let's say, for example, I want to get into the hair salon business. I don't know anything about the cosmetic industry.
Mm-hmm.
How can I master that industry as quickly as possible? I want to do it. I'm passionate about it. I don't have as much time as I'd like, especially at my age, to do all this, but I want to dive in and make it happen, Alycia. What are the steps? What are the things I need to do?
I think you have to figure out how to put the time in. So that's the first thing. You have to figure out how to put the time in. I know we've read in different places that it takes 10,000 hours to master something. Whether that's true or not, I think the closer you get to putting in the time is the closer you get to mastering it. But I think you have to dedicate time, just like you would study anything else, just like we studied in law school to be the wonderful lawyers that we are. We need to put the time into the other things that we're doing as well. So for me, it's setting aside a certain amount of time every single day to work on mastery. So it's, and it's still the same thing with the law firm. I still spend time every single day reading case law. I read a case this morning. It's part of what I do in the morning. So like getting up and meditating, reading my affirmations, it's, if it's working out in the morning, it's sitting down at my desk and reading a case, and it's reading blog posts about either running a salon or understanding the beauty industry. You have to put the time in, listening to podcasts, watching other people who are doing it, watching the stylists who are doing it, understanding what goes into providing a certain or particular type of service. You have to still put the time in. But then it's also about the community. It's about getting involved in the community, which is a little bit harder to do. I think it's mostly virtual now for all of us, but it is kind of getting yourself into those areas and really getting to know the players in the field and getting to understand what it takes to be really good in that particular space as well.
So Mo asked a really good question that I'm going to get to, Alycia, in just a second. But before we do that, it can almost be a little bit overwhelming to think about, okay, I want to start this new business and do what you just said, okay? Mm-hmm. And one of the things that's always worked for me and has been very reassuring, and I just read the book again, is Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. And he talks about all of you, for example, in your situation, all of your experience in high school, you graduated top of your class, right?
Yes.
Graduated top of your class, went to college, got your MBA, went to law school. All of these things are part of your 10,000 hours.
Yes.
Okay. And it's not starting your 10,000 hours today. It's taking your past experiences, both good and bad, tweaking them and using them to then move forward and accomplish your goal that you're setting out to today. So that 10,000 hour rule, I actually think there's a lot of validity to it, but it has more to do with your lifetime experiences as opposed to, I want to open up a hair salon and I want to open it up next week. What do I need to do next? Have you put in the time? Do you know how to manage a business, do finances, market, right? What are you doing online to help to market the salon? Are you using Instagram?
Yeah. So before we get to that, I just want to say one of the things about mastering too is I always look at it too as you don't need to do all these things before you can start. You should be doing these things as you continue. So while you're sitting there learning more about whatever it is, while I'm reading cases, I turn around, take the case, and I write about it. So now I have the content that I can put out and market. So it's the same thing as you take that information, you kind of continue to use it. So it's definitely not a do it before you can run type of situation. Is you need to keep doing it all the time. But in terms of marketing and salon, we are marketing on Instagram. I inherited, a huge following from when I bought the salon that had already been built up. So we market on Instagram, we market on Facebook. We have a lot of word of mouth still. But yeah, those are the main ways that we're marketing the salon at this point.
You bring up a really good point, and that is like we talked about earlier, starting a new business is easy. Keeping it working, keeping it moving forward, that's the challenge. And it's a constant process, right? And I just love the fact that you just emphasize that for everyone. Don't be afraid to start, but never slow down. Keep pushing forward, keep learning, and that kind of plays into Mo's question. Morris Lilienthal out of Alabama. How do you balance all this, being a lawyer, the owner of your own business, a mom, a social media celebrity, a keynote speaker. I mean, seriously, Alycia, that's a lot on your plate, but it sounds like you enjoy it.
I do enjoy it. Like I told you, I like challenges, right? So for me, it's about time management and somewhat, organization. I'm probably not the most organized person, but I'm organized in the way that I do things. And it's been my village. My mother-in-law is amazing. Like she's amazing. I love her. So she's been a great help. Even when, I had my first son all the way up to now, and that's where my kids are right now. They're not even home. They're with her. But she's been definitely a rock for both my husband and I to kind of help me do a lot of these things. But a lot of it is kind of, looking at my day when I was working at the firm. And even now, instead of taking my time and working until late at night, I just got up early. So that's why I'm up 5 o'clock in the morning. And I use that time to do as much as I can. So I'm not taken away from my babies. So it's kind of like managing my time that way. I do a lot less television watching, or if when I'm watching television, it's on in the background and I'm still doing the work that I need to do. So that's how I can get my hours in. That's how I get my writing in. That's how I get my work in, is prioritizing the things that I need to prioritize. And because I like doing it, it doesn't feel like I'm giving up anything.
That's just it. So we all know you're up early. And why do we know you're up early? What do you do on Twitter each day?
I send a good morning text. Now, some days when I'm up super early, I don't send it out because I feel terrible that I'm up so early. But I do send it. I do send it out. Good morning text to the world.
And what, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. We had a little hiccup in the audio. If people want to follow you on Twitter, Alycia, what's your handle?
It's my initials, which is AAK and then ESQ. So AAK ESQ for Esquire.
Yeah. It's always fun to see your good morning early in the morning. And I usually reply in the evening, right? It's just the way it works out. But here's the thing. You said something that everyone, not everyone, a lot of people today say hustle, work your butt off, go full speed, hair on fire. I've never been that way. That's not the way I've lived my life. Mm-hmm. But looking back, I'm like you, up early. Sometimes I'll be working late when everyone goes to bed because there's things that I actually enjoy doing. It doesn't feel like work.
Exactly.
And for those of you watching the show, and I'm looking, we got to get to some of these questions, Alycia. I hope the takeaway you're getting is that the enthusiasm and the passion and all of the life that you can hear in Alicia's voice and in her stories is because of the decisions she made to shift and to pivot and to do different things. I feel the same way. I'm excited to get up in the morning and do all these different things than just going to court and trying a case, which, by the way, isn't happening right now.
Yes.
And just between us, I'm kind of glad it's not happening. I'm okay with that. We're able to settle our cases. Nobody wants these cases out there, but that's another show for another time. But can I get to some questions real quick? Just
Absolutely.
Rapid fire. Okay. So I'm not sure they're going to show up in StreamYard, but I'm looking at a couple of different questions. So if you were to, I'm going to paraphrase it, Alycia, if you were to look back, it looks like look back on your career, okay, and have a do-over. In other words, there's something I absolutely would have done different to get to that goal, to get to that final outcome. Knowing what you know now, what's your answer?
I don't have any regrets. There's not a whole lot that I would change.
Not a regret. Not a regret.
No regrets. I can't think of. And I would say this: the things that have happened, the things that have where they have worked out, have shaped my experience to make me where I am now. Now there may be things that could have maybe made my life a little bit easier. Maybe if I went to a big law firm, in the beginning, maybe things are a little bit different. But maybe it'd be worse. I tend to look at the way that my path has gone as being the way that it was supposed to go. And there's not a lot that I would look back over my life and say I should have made a different choice or that I wish something had been different.
I love that.
The questions, but that's generally how I feel. I don't.
Yeah, I think life's too short to spend it looking in the rearview mirror, right? You got to keep moving forward and just keep building on that foundation. But no, that's why you're on the show. I had a feeling that was going to be your answer even before I heard you share it with us. Favorite book that you recommend as far as business entrepreneurship?
Traction is the first one that comes to mind. It's a really good book about how to grow your business. It's very detailed. I think it gives you basically a manual. It's close to a manual as you can get. So traction, I think, is a really good one for people to look at.
Okay. And let's see. Well, you know what I want to do is we'll bounce back over. And if you guys have questions, just ask them over where we're broadcasting on StreamYard, if you would, please, so that I can share them with everyone. What do you have going on moving forward, Alycia? What are you going to be doing to help support, the shifting and the pivots and the career fine tuning in your life over the next 12 to 24 months? It sounds like you like to plan ahead. So I'm guessing you've already got some plans in the works.
I have some plans. I was actually just talking to my husband about something I'm thinking about doing, and I'm not going to announce it just yet, but we were just having this discussion before we started today. And he was just like, just pull the trigger, just do it. So I will probably share that with you guys soon, but I can't share it just yet. My goals right now are to really look at the way that I'm offering services in a salon and continuing to make that a profitable ongoing business that hopefully changes the way that services are offered and the way that some of our employees are compensated, because I don't particularly like the way that a lot of stylists are compensated. I think, and we saw that, I think, with the way that the shutdown worked, was that a lot of people didn't have an opportunity to get the benefit of some of the things and opportunities in terms of unemployment or stimulus or whatever the case may be, because the way that compensation methods are set up. So I'm looking at what I can do in that space to kind of help with that. For me, again, is the firm. I really kind of want to focus on the path of growing the firm to running, without me, except for me going to court when I feel like it, which I do like going to court, but I really want to get it to that path. And the other thing I'm really working on, and it's been an ongoing conversation I've been having with one of my good friends, is finding my space in pushing social justice. And I, as a family law attorney, I definitely, when everything happened, I felt a little bit inept. I didn't feel like the work that I'm doing is enough to really, I guess, cause a lot of change. But I also feel like I have this license that I should be doing more with, or I should be able to use in a different way. But for me, I found what I feel like is a framework for that. And so I'm just kind of figuring out my way to kind of continue that push. But I felt like I had an aha moment about a week ago, where I feel like I found the framework and I just need to figure out how to push that along. So that's going to be kind of my focus. And then getting my, praying, my oldest son is turning 16 next year. So I'm thinking about all of that stuff too. Yeah.
That'll keep you busy right there. So it's interesting. I'm listening to you with all of this business experience, with everything that you've done. A month ago, you had an aha moment where, okay, I'm going to pivot again and maybe add something else into the formula, into the equation, because it matters to you, because you want to make a difference and you want to do something a little bit different. Have you thought about a book? Have you thought about writing a book, maybe about your life, about your mindset, the different entrepreneurial decisions you've made? You can share this with the world. I think that would be awesome.
I actually have not. I think the closest I've gotten to thinking about that is taking some of the episodes from the Growth Goal and putting them together. But no, I haven't.
How many of you out there would love to see Alycia write a book? How many of you out there would read Alicia's book? Let me know in the comments, because I think it would be awesome. And as well as anyone that that's probably one of the best ways to help build your personal brand, right? To get that book out there, especially when you've got a captured audience in your salon, in each of the seats, with your book profile, in court with your clients. Don asked the question, we need another show, and maybe we will do this, to discuss how you've implemented traction, both in your practice and in your business. Can you highlight a couple of things that you've taken away from the book and applied to your life?
So what I've used is like traction, and then I marry that with another book called The Balance Scorecard. So it's the idea of kind of giving your business a report card at the end of every quarter. So we just ended quarter 2. And then you take a step back and you say, look, how did I do? Here are the areas: client, customer and client services, processes, finance, and marketing. And then
there's 2 books right there. Go ahead. You got to multitask on this show, but I'm just saying, you got to supply and demand, Alycia.
I see. But I think if we take those things and give ourselves a report card kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of how I look at traction. So I took Balance Scorecard, like that framework, And then I put in traction. I kind of like take all the books and kind of make my own little thing, and then I have my own notes in my notebook about what I'm looking for and what I want, and I can add in stuff from Profit First and some of the other books that I read. And then just kind of make my own framework for what I want to see in my business and then kind of continue to tweak it.
I love that where you say, make my own framework. Like what works for you? What works for you may not work for me. It may not work for anyone else, but if it works for you and you can take action on it, I think that's where the power comes from.
Yeah.
Right. This has been awesome. I really, and I hope you know this. I've always have been impressed with everything you do, with how you approach your relationships with people, with the stories that you've shared as a lawyer, with the with your entrepreneurial experiences and rolling out this new business since I've known you. It's really been fun to watch, and it's been really a pleasure to tap into your mindset, to tap into how you approach life, Alycia. And when I heard you share this on stage, last year, and then I think you spoke at Clio down in San Diego this year, and I wasn't able to get down there. It's all about you guys putting yourself in a situation like we are right now, where you can get value from someone else and you can learn from what they're doing. And I know right now in this show right here, okay, I'm the second smartest person on the screen. I know that for a fact, and I'm okay with that, you guys. And Alycia, I just want to thank you for being on the show tonight. I want to encourage everybody that's watching live, watching the recorded show, listening to the podcast version of this show, to reach out and connect with you, tap into your wisdom, tap into your knowledge, tap into what you're doing, your communities on social media. If people want to reach out and connect, Alycia, what are the best ways for them to do so?
So on social media, I'm again at AAKESQ. So that's Instagram and Twitter. And then you can absolutely shoot me an email. AlyciaKinchloe.esq@gmail. You can find me. And I respond. I help people as much as I can because I would want somebody to be able to do the same thing. And you've done that for me. I appreciate you, Mitch, so much. You've definitely been a great resource and help to me over the years. So thank you so much for everything you've done and that you continue to do for the community.
Oh, thank you, Alycia. Thank you very much. And if people want to go to your website, what's your website address?
KinchloeLaw.com for the firm, and then blazerhairbar.com for the salon.
So I don't have that set up in a banner, but there's KinchloeLaw.com, you guys, and you can reach out. Alicia's easy to connect with on social media. She's all over the place, and she understands the dance. And for that, thank you, Alycia, for stepping out on the dance floor with me tonight, at least for an hour. I know it's late back on the East Coast and early here on the West Coast. I know you and I, let's share a little bit of our human side real quick before we wrap things up. I know that when we're done, you're going to head out in the backyard and hang out with the family for a while, or with your husband for a while, right?
Yeah, so I already got him scheduled in. No, I made sure that he, wanted to hang out with me in the backyard. So we're going to be relaxing, drinking some wine.
Yeah.
Yeah, under the lights. So I'm looking forward to that.
It sounds perfect. And I mentioned to Alycia, we're going to be doing the same thing here as a family in our backyard in about 25 minutes. So in about 30 minutes, let's both raise our glasses and give each other a toast. And for all of you joining us this evening, both live and recorded, we really appreciate it. It means the world to us that you're here. And Alycia, I just want to thank you once again for being on the show, once again for all the value you bring to our community. And between now and the next time I see you, which will probably be soon online, continue to enjoy the journey, continue to lead, and continue to make each day your masterpiece. Thank you, Alycia. And thanks, everyone, for being here.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Hang on.